All right, and hello, welcome back. It is Jennifer Britton and Kathy Vaughn. We have a few people actually just dropping in to join us for this special International Coaching Week focus around all things team coaching in this hour together. So really good to connect with you, Kathy. I'm excited to have another touch point with you where we get to talk about the emerging advanced credential in team coaching. So I've
Yes.
today like three things I wish I'd known as I started my work towards my ACTC. What do you think is so important about this topic right now for coaches?
Well, I think it's so important for three reasons. The first is I know that this journey for you started like 15 months ago, and it only resolved itself recently. Second, everyone's talking about it, right? Everyone's posting, I'm ACTC, I'm a credentialed provider of team coaching training. And so that's important for the clients to know what is out there. And the third is just for the person who maybe, has not been only doing team coaching, has been doing other things. How do I go back when I have relevant assignments and basically translate those into a framework that ICF can accept?
Yes.
Those would be my three things.
And those are great three things, a little different than where I was going to take the conversation, but I'm sure many of you are listening in because perhaps you too are interested in getting your advanced credential in team coaching, which, just to clarify, is open to any coach practitioners who hold an ICF credential. It is the first of what I understand to be many specializations which are coming down the pipeline, and it will sit on top of your ACC, PCC, or MCC to recognize and acknowledge that you have done advanced training and practice in the area of team coaching. So as Kathy said, even for me, I've been active in the team coaching realm now for 20 years, right? Like I started my coach training 20 years ago. I've been training team coaches for the last 13 years. And as part of the pilot process, it took almost 15 months from the start of activating my work with a coaching supervisor to going through the emerging process that they looked at last year, and then the actual, approval in the pilot. And we've been working very hard for the last year as well to make sure that our training here at Group Coaching Essentials and Potentials Realized meets the requirements for the new advanced certification in team coaching. So I thought today it would be useful. We've talked a lot about it, but I also wanted to contextualize this because as someone who has been talking about team coaching for more than a decade, I think it's really important to look at where we were and where we are now. And that's a big piece. Three things I wish I'd known as I even started to pull my materials together for the advanced credential is that this is not a credential that you just put in paperwork for and you're done. Like you can't just say today, oh, I want to have this by next month. The requirements are such that you need to demonstrate years of work with teams as a team coach, not a team facilitator, not a team trainer, but really in that co-design space of team coaching. And some of you may be familiar with me, again, through my writing From One to Many, Best Practices for Group and Team Coaching. This year, 2023, we celebrate the 10th anniversary since the publication of that book in July of 2013. And I'm really becoming quite reflective of what has changed, what has shifted in those years since I released this book. And, the book's been used by thousands, tens of thousands actually, of coaches. It's been a required or recommended resource by coach training programs all over the world. And I only say that to really indicate that it has influenced a generation of coaches. And very much, we are at a space now where so much has been happening in the last 3 years, especially. It was March of 2020 where ICF initiated their initial competency assessment, which took over a year to validate and identify the team coaching competencies. If you have never looked at those, invitation right now to head on over to the ICF website to download not just the core coaching competencies, which also have been updated, but to download the team coaching competencies. And these form the foundation of the advanced credential in team coaching. because there are multiple components of that process. As I said, it's about practice. We'll get into the details soon, but it's about practice. So doing the work with a minimum of 5 teams over, it could be 5 years more period of time, but we need to be doing the work. There's also an exam, just like the coach knowledge assessment for one-on-one coaches. There is a new team coaching exam, which practitioners need to practice towards, learn about, and therefore pass the exam. So it is, without going into a lot of detail, you can read more on the website, but it is scenario based, and it will test your knowledge base of this whole realm of team coaching, team effectiveness, what happens in the world of teams. And that, again, is an ever-evolving sphere. So I wanted to, before we dive into my 3 lessons learned, I also wanted to share 6 influences around team coaching right now in 2023. And last fall, I was asked by Choice Magazine to do the lead article for their team coaching edition. And these were the 6 influences that I really identified November of 2022 as significant influences in the team coaching space right now. Here we are at the beginning of May, so really 6 months later, but I think they are still very relevant, if not even more relevant, given the changes that are happening in the world today. So I want to get into these before I talk a little bit more about the ACTC lessons learned, because these are things that you're going to be stepping into the water with teams, as a practitioner, as a leader, etc. And the first, of course, are these radical paradigm shifts, right? The way we work, the way we operate continues to change and emerge. Many organizations have gone from all virtual and remote to hybrid, to different places in the world saying, you know what, we need you back in the office, and other places in the world, like here in Canada, where our federal service employees actually just were able to negotiate in their collective agreement the ability to have choice and clarity around remote working. So there are a lot of different situations across the world which is buffeting teams. Paradigm shifts as well go into the area of artificial intelligence, right? Like, even think about how ChatGPT has impacted your world. Personally, as a content creator, I love ChatGPT. It's a great resource for doing some initial research. I wouldn't say you'd use it for final research, but it's a really great tool that we can look at harnessing, and teams are being impacted by the impact of AI at this moment in time. We have learned throughout the last few years that very much we operate in a system, and systems approaches, I think, are even more pronounced, and encouraging coaches to really add on or incorporate systems approaches if you have not done so in the past. I have to say, one of my lessons learned that I'll share in a little bit is this focus on systems. I actually have always been a systems sensitive practitioner, not only as a coach and a facilitator and a consultant, but I don't think I realized how imbued I was with this for a long time. And so many of you, like myself, were trained with maybe ORSC, Organization Relationship Systems Coaching. I grew up as a grad student through the days of Peter Senge and his work in the systems realm. And this is really part of how teams are operating within the world. So I won't go dive deeply into this, but Kathy, I know you're doing a lot of work with teams right now as you look at these options of paradigms, systems, belonging, trust, safety, connection, the fact that teams are constantly changing and that teaming methodology, and the fact that adaptive and emerging models are needed. What do you think is important in your work with teams right now, 2023?
Yeah, so Jennifer, thanks for asking. I would say teaming is hugely important. I work with a couple of different teams and one of them has been the UN system that I know you're very familiar with, where people are coming in and out on a regular basis, right? So there's 8 weeks in, 4 weeks in, we're out. So this is a team that will never be intact in the way that you would hope it would be. So teaming as a modality is, and an approach to working together is really important. I also think that adaptive and emerging models, we expect a recession, right? We have increasing digitalization. And there's just like in our own context, different disruptions that we can't even anticipate. Just thinking of where I am in Kenya, right now, things coming in, being imported is a real challenge, right? It's just sitting there. Who knows what's actually happening? But if I'm a business leader and I'm trying to get my team to perform and I can't get the goods into the country, like what are we performing around? So I think there's something around a real appreciation for lack of control that is so, and I think COVID started this, right? But it's just so far beyond where we were 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I know this, you wrote this 2 years ago or a year ago, but like, I just feel that we've come out of COVID and it's just that sense of, I just don't know, actually continues. And so how do we help the leaders begin to build the resilience, within their teams, really think through what are the red flags we need to pay attention to as a team, as the business, right? Our performance and our interaction, which team coaching is just really well suited for.
Yeah. Because the big thing here is, team coaching is that ongoing conversation space. It's not a one-off. And I think this is something that's so important. I get this question all the time as a supervisor and also as a mentor coach and as a coach trainer for team coaches, like, can it be a one-off? Well, that's really that team facilitation. Team coaching is when we're really deeply partnering with that team entity, even as a team entity may change, but we're there to help create that pause and focus for the team to look at what's important for them with their results and relationships. And if you go back to from one to many, 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, when I was doing the research, asking teams, leaders, coaches, what's the value of team coaching? That piece around the opportunity to pause and reflect came up time and time and time again for teams. Their ability, because many teams just keep running unless there is often an external force, which could even be just a meeting with the coach, that creates that urgency and that need to pause. Because we live in a 24/7 world, right? Like that is the big shift in these last few years. And while Kathy might be in Kenya, I might be in Canada, like the urgency is happening on many different levels. So how are we really working together? And this is where, as a team coach practitioner, I want to segue us out of these influences, which actually may be, these are great sort of things to think about as you think about, well, where would I find a coach to team or find a team to coach? Or what kind of issues are teams that I'm coaching grappling with? These are the areas that, in addition to things like conflict, lack of role clarity, lack of resources, are really endemic to the team coaching space. So as we get started, like many of you might be listening to this because you're thinking, I want to apply for my ACTC. And I want you to ask yourself the question, what's important about advancing your skills, knowledge, and practice as a team coach? Because very much the ACTC is that mark, that badge of honor saying, I not only have knowledge, but I have skills and bring practical experience in helping teams move their relationships forward and move their results forward. And if you've read my work, Reconnecting Workspaces, very much in the methodology and the frameworks that I've created, it is about that duality of, as a team, we not only need to get results, and we know that teams are the engines of business, but teams need to have that sense of connection. It is about the relational web that we're often working with the team to become aware of or to really put resourcing back in themselves, because teams can only run fast for so long. This, I do believe, as a researcher, as a writer, that one of the reasons why we have so much burnout right now, it's been this like go, 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 go. And if you've worked with me, you know that I love to go, but we also need to renew. If we're not refilling our cup, it is going to be burnout endemically. So why team coaching, right? We've talked a little bit about the why, but why are you as a practitioner wanting to go down this path? as Kathy said, it's an extended process. Even for me as a thought leader in this field, it took almost a year actually from the time that I sort of heard that, oh, you need to have coaching supervision. So I needed to go out and research what was coaching supervision. This was a few years ago. I knew of coaching supervision, but really had to do some research around who could supervise me as a team coach, because I didn't want to just be supervised by someone who was going to be bringing methodology and frameworks for one-on-one. Team coaching is different. And I was very lucky to work with my current supervisor. I still work with her, but she is a team coach, and she was also, privy to and educated around team coaching supervision frameworks. And that was really encouraging for me, because if we go back a couple of years, I had wanted to attend training as a team coach supervisor back in 2021 with Peter Hawkins and had been invited, but couldn't fit it into my schedule. And it was one of those real events where I was like, oh, I just know this is going to be so important. So finally, in 2022, Kathy and I both made our way to that training. For me, it was really eye-opening. And I did that intensive training with Peter and his team around advanced supervision in team coaching, recognizing that, the 3 days that we spent together, the 24 hours of that training was not just enough. And so that led me to a process I'm wrapping up now. I've done a diploma in coaching supervision over the last year. As an academic, as a writer, I've loved the deep dive into the research, into sort of the practice of this work as well. And I know, Kathy, you've done a different program, which provided a different slant. So what have you enjoyed about your learning process as a supervisor? Because supervision is a really big component of the ACTC. So what would you say about supervision and why it's important for team coaches?
Yes, so I think there's two parts of it. First of all, any coach who's been training for more than a decade or so, right? You've done courses, you've done renewals of certificates or credentials, and it might become routine. What supervision offers you is the opportunity just to sit and really think through, how am I doing as a coach, right? Like, where did I start? Where am I now? Then when we get more specific about the team coaching context, first of all, everyone's talking about team coaching, right? I mean, you just have to look at LinkedIn, it's everywhere. But do people really understand what it is? And so if I'm a person offering team coaching, and I'm going out to a market that's just grabbing on words and saying, yes, we're doing team coaching. And during International Coaching Week, a lot of people are telling us we're doing coaching, right? It's because we're talking about coaching. What helps me as the practitioner, what supports me to make sure I'm doing good practice coaching and good practice team coaching, managing those boundaries, focusing on the collective, not the individuals in a team, supporting the team leader to be part of that conversation, having them think about what is the conversation we can only have together. And what do other people, other stakeholders want us to discuss? And that's the container that we help provide as team coaches. And the team coaching supervisor helps the team coach construct that container and look at it from different points of view to make sure that as I look at that complexity, I'm not missing it.
Mm-hmm. And it is that complexity that I think really distinguishes team coaching, especially, right? There are so many layers. And even as seasoned coaches, even as seasoned team workers, we need to be very aware, not only of our boundaries, but of the things that we may be missing in the room, the things that we may not be focusing on. And I think this is really important. This comes from someone, me, who has worked with teams for 3 decades now. And I have always asserted, even in my early years, that the day that I feel that I know what's going on is the day that I should not be doing this work. Really, we need to step back. We need to, build in the practice. And it's a much easier practice when you have a framework like supervision to be able to say, wow, what am I not noticing? Or what am I overly noticing and perhaps ignoring in the context of the conversations and the work with the teams or groups? I think this holds true for teams and groups, although there's different layers of complexity in the space of group and team coaching. So, part of what we're zooming into here and what was really important and got really sparked for my learning and my continued development as a coach practitioner is this piece around supervision. In fact, I've been spending a lot of time recently asking myself, come the fall after summer, what are the areas I really want to be spending my time in? And I love, love, love being a supervisor, right? Almost all my work one-on-one now is as a supervisor. If I'm not coach training or doing work as a practitioner, like it's really more as a supervisor than anything else. Because I think it's so important that we get into this, because the ACTC is all about the art and science of practice. And I can't reinforce that enough. I really wanted to share as a secondary point this notion that, had I known a decade ago or 19 years ago, 21 years ago, 22 years ago, when I became a coach, that I should be tracking all the work that I was doing as a team coach, wow, it would have been a very different element. I was able to go back and really zoom into some of those big pieces of work, because typically they are pieces of work, right? They might be 3 months, 6 months, 1 year that you're embedded with a team. It could be a 5-year relationship that you have with an organization that then 10 years later surfaces and says, hey, can you come back? But you might also be at a different place. And Kathy understands this, because I had one of those great clients that I'd done work with for 5.5 years reach back to me a couple of years ago and say, we want to work with you, but I was at a very different space. So, what is the practice? What is the practice now? What is the practice 5 years from now? Where do you want to go with this work? Because it is intensive in a wonderful way, but I think we need to recognize the intensity to say that, it's common. And I, as a mentor coach, I heard from someone the other day. I said, how many clients are you working with? And they said, oh, I've got 40 one-on-one coaching clients right now. 40. I said, so let's talk a little bit about, the relationship that you have and how you're able to serve them well. While some coaches can carry that load, others, it's way beyond their capacity. And I think as team coaches, we want to be very discerning. What is that best blend of work? It might only be one team that you're working with at a time, because one team alone can really keep keep things going, depending on what the methodology is. So one thing I really wish I'd thought about or been more conscious of, it's not thought about, but maybe been more conscious about, is like, what is the practice? What is my practice? What is the blend of my practice? How does team coaching inform group coaching? How does my coaching of many inform any one-on-one work that I'm doing? How does it influence also the networks of people that I'm connecting in with? Because one area that Kathy and I haven't touched on today, but I think is important and not a focus for today, but is the whole notion of co-coaching, right? And we keep bringing this up in a lot of our community calls, but co-coaching is a whole other arena that I think as coaches continue to arc into this space, they're definitely needing more resources around co-coaching, but they're also becoming more sensitive to how do we really create that mastery. And I'm a bit biased in here because I started my day today looking at the coaching superpowers. So if you haven't taken that quiz yet, definitely head on over to our Potentials Realized site. I have I think a QR code as we go. So we've talked a lot. We've got about 5 minutes left, Kathy. We talked supervision and reflective practice. We talked about having a practice and noting it. I want to encourage people to think about what's unique about their skills. And I would encourage you, we will not go through it in this call, but definitely this is from the ICF website. Read through this carefully to really understand what is team coaching, why is it important, and what's required, because there's quite a bit, right? You need to have that credential. You need to either do 60 hours of team coaching education, or you can do advanced prior credit. So there's two pathways, literally. And we were talking about this last week in supervision. Some coaches are opting to go into the prior credit, which looks a little different. Instead of doing 60 hours, you need to do 30 hours. Likewise, you're going to need to do 5 team coaching engagements within the last 5 years and get letters from those sponsors or the team lead or someone within the system. Now that in and of itself can take some time doing the digging. Are those people still there? Where have they moved on to? But it can be extremely rewarding. And I was very fortunate in the 5 teams that I reached back to, that they were like, they actually gave me some time. I said, how is it going? What impact did team coaching have for you as a team? And it was amazing to just hear beyond this letter that they needed to write what impact our work together had had. And because it was within a 5-year window, they were able to track like how team coaching created the conditions for a much more vibrant culture, changes, and different ways of working. So lots of ideas here. We don't want to overwhelm, but the identification is you've got to decide as well, which are the pathways. Are you going to go and do 60 hours of training, or are you going to do 30 hours? And this is where our training, again, Team Coaching Essentials, our Superpower program, our Advanced Practicum, can be part of either prior learning. A lot of people have joined us for the trifecta and have used that for their 30 hours of prior learning, or many of you are also going on to do 60 hours or even 125 hours. Because mastery as a team coach does not end. It is ongoing learning. One of the key lessons learned for me was like, how am I tracking my past work? Because while you can go back and pull files together, right? When you're filing cabinet, as I'm realizing as I'm moving, is like 6 big filing cabinets. How do you pull that work together easily without spending days going through files and looking at numbers and looking at data? So we hope that today has really got you excited. Maybe it's around supervision, maybe it's around looking at what's required. If you are interested in learning more about supervision, here's our QR code. You can scan that right now. You can set up a call. I've just put my link because it's a little shorter than Kathy and my link, but you scan the code really is the key thing. And this is our pathway. We'd really love to sit down and talk with you about how you might want to keep learning and growing as a team coach. Some of you may be aware of my latest TED Talk, which I won't call it going viral, but it's now had over 30,000 views. And that is called Coaching Teams Through Chaos. And a lot of times it feels like chaos. So this is the QR code to that TED Talk. This whole body of work maps into our coaching diverse teams and groups, which is also a 14 CCE approved program and meets some of that requirement for education in team coaching. So I think I'm going to leave it here. We are at the bottom of the hour. Kathy, what else do you think is useful as we go to wrap up today's call?
I think you've really framed it like, it's just like everything else in coaching. It's up to the client, in this case, our potential participant, to decide which is the best path for them.
Mm-hmm.
And with that in mind, knowing that, our offer is small group dialogue-based conversations. We have a modular approach. We have 10 different courses one can take. We have a preferred foundation of the first 3: group coping essentials, team coaching essentials, and advanced practicum, and then building beyond that. And you mentioned some of them, the activate, superpowers, co-coaching, and of course supervision to support that throughout. But we are here to serve anyone who's interested in team coaching. And this is a CCE course, so it will sit on top of an already foundation. And I think that's really important to say.
Yeah, I think as a practitioner of many years and a coach trainer, group and team coaching is not necessarily something for the newer coach, right? You really want to make sure you have those core competencies dialed in as you arc. Now, there may be instances where you're coming in as a group facilitator already, right? That was my experience 22 years ago. And I realized as I stepped into the coaching profession way back then, as a team leader myself, there's a heck of a lot that I needed to learn. And, coaching is different. Coaching is different than facilitation. It's different than training. I have done all 3. I'm certified in all 3, and they're different disciplines. They are different professions. And so in this space of team coaching and also in group coaching, what's going to help us serve our clients best? So we'd love to sit down and talk with you again. You can find out upcoming programs because we're now with a 10 program course. People are coming in at different layers. Most people start with our trifecta. Some people then jump ahead and do the new neuroscience program, or they really like this notion of looking at their skills and strengths and superpowers. Others are going to the coaching diverse teams through work styles. So the nice thing about this is they are modular, as Kathy said, and they're dialogue based. We are a virtual organization and will continue to be so because that's what we've always been since 2004. But we know that our training is different than most training out there. It's highly interactive. It is as experiential as you can get it in the virtual space, because those were my roots and that's how this business was formed. So we hope that you've enjoyed this. As we go to wrap up, think about supervision, think about how you're tracking your progress, and think about what's going to help you continue to grow, because we all continue to grow, myself included. There is hopefully that next stretch zone for you to be looking towards and improving your practice, because coaching excellence is not something that happens overnight. It is an ongoing journey. Kathy, what would you like to say in final words as we go to wrap up?
I just want, everyone to just consider, what do they really need or want if they're going to go for team coaching certification. It is possible to train around team coaching and not want to do it. So really to consider, it's a lot of effort. And so if you make the commitment, we're here to partner with you. We also appreciate that some people may take team coaching essentials and the practicum and may say, actually, I'm okay, right? And that's really okay as well. But it's about appreciating that you do need additional skills and working with our methodology of small dialogue-based experiential courses.
So thank you for joining us. If you are into practice and wanting to design something, join me on Thursday, May the 10th, I believe, no, the 11th. In 2 days at 12 noon, I'll be doing a design sprint that will not be recorded. So our design sprints are a bonus in our Team Coaching Essentials program, and it is something highly, highly valued. I will just give a sneak peek and say that it's a 45-minute process where you're going to be putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard around program ideas. So if you're designing for a webinar, a retreat, a group coaching conversation, a team coaching conversation, this is a 45-minute block where you'll want to join me for a series of reflective prompts where I'll take you from high level to actually being able to, you will have and leave that 45 minutes with a bit of a skeleton. It is not a full-blown design because we are not trainers, but it is enough to get the conversation started with your clients. So please join us back in this same room Thursday at noon. Because it is so highly individualized, you need to join us live. It is not recorded, but it is a bonus. Live ones are bonus with Kathy in the Team Coaching Essentials. And Kathy, I think our next Team Coaching Essentials starts Monday, the 15th, and that is 12 noon. So anything you want to say about Team Coaching Essentials?
So Team Coaching Essentials is a 6-week, 90-minute program that really takes you from starting to understand what is team coaching versus team facilitation, team training, team building. Every week, there's real focus on how do you build your offer? How do you keep on explaining to people what's different about team coaching? And of course, Jennifer offers the sprint. And so by the time you walk away, you've had every week a chance to discuss with people, who are you as a team coach? What is it that you offer? How do you want to use team coaching in the rest of your business, which is really important because once you incorporate team coaching, it changes your business. And so you have to start thinking about that and then to build out what it is that you want to do. So that's over 6 weeks. Then, of course, in between, as is part of our signature brand, you have 15-minute calls with Jennifer and myself. And it's an opportunity to just check in, what's up, what's going on. And the participants who use it find it to have a lot of value.
So lots of layers of learning. We hope that you'll join us at some point, whether it's for one call or what's one program or all 10 in the pathway. We are a one-stop shop for all things group and team coaching. That's been what we've been doing since 2004. And continue to lead and serve in this area. So with that, thank you, everyone. Hope to see you Thursday, and do enjoy the rest of your International Coaching Week. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.